We had $20 million first year.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
$100,000 days.
The cannabis community is one of the bigger thing that people why are people staying in the
Yeah,
industry
yeah, yeah.
because I don't think the money is there as
No.
much as Hey everyone, welcome to the Ganjha show. Our guest for the day is Cindy Burke. She's a business development partner at Canmar. Canmar is a staffing agency. They're into tech, social media, so much more. But let's get to know Cindy first, and then we'll get into Canmar and what they're doing to level up the butt tenders.
Hi. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming on, Cindy.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to know how you got started into cannabis.
Ooh, so my cannabis journey. I started out in retail, and I managed one of the first stores in Ottawa, the first of three stores in Ottawa. We were extremely busy. The name of the store was Superette, and they were one of the original lottery winners. I managed that store. We had $20 million first year.
That's crazy.
$100,000 days. It was pretty exciting. It was an amazing journey. And then COVID hit. Once COVID hit, we had to pivot to delivery. So we hired a fleet of drivers. We had 6 full-time drivers plus myself delivering cannabis and keeping Ottawa safe and happy while they were in lockdown.
Yeah.
During the lockdown, I saw that the licensing process was going to start to speed up in the surrounding area. And I had an opportunity at that point to join ReadyCan. So I became a territory manager for Eastern Ontario for ReadyCan, and very quickly moved into a national sales role. So built a sales team out across Canada, and ReadyCan was acquired by Hexo for $1 billion.
Oh.
Yeah,
So that
so-
was before even the Hexo acquisition. Oh.
Before the Hexo acquisition, Hexo went on a shopping spree, and they purchased, I want to say 48 North, Zenibus, and ReadyCan all at the same time.
Yeah.
So yes, I woke up one morning to find out that ReadyCan had been acquired, and it took about 6 months to do that acquisition, and I moved into Hexo. I was acquired by Hexo, or I was acquired by Hexo as well. I moved into sales. Of course, I'm a sales entrepreneur person, heart in my soul, and I then saw that Tilbury was coming to purchase Hexo, and I felt like after going through the stress of that initial acquisition,
Yeah.
I didn't have it in me to work with a company that was going to get acquired again.
Yeah.
So I had done the majority of the hiring through Canmar. We probably hired about 200 humans to join ReadyCan on the brand ambassador and the sales side, and Canmar asked me to join them. So I felt like it was the moment for me to become very cannabis adjacent while the trees were being shaken on the retail side and the licensed producer side.
Yeah. I mean, very interesting journey. So many things to unpack here. But
Yeah.
first thing I think is just getting started at one of the biggest stores.
Yeah.
Obviously, lottery was a big thing back then.
Yeah.
There was only very limited supply, let's say. How was that experience? Like, was it
Yeah.
crazy managing a $20 million
Yeah.
like a year store? Now
Yeah.
people can even dream about it. I don't think
No.
anyone's doing that much business right now. But
No, I haven't seen another store that had 6 stations, POS systems going at the same time, and
Yeah.
the lineups that we had to deal with. It was a super exciting time and such a huge learning experience because we had so many licensed producers coming at us and so many products coming at us. It was the beginning also of 2.0. So we had just learned about all the flower. The training for the bud tenders was an immense piece as well. And also the security because, with that type of money coming out of one establishment, we
Yeah.
always had to keep security top of mind.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I know COVID wasn't, I don't think, I wasn't even here in Canada during
Oh.
COVID, and I know like all the stores closed down. It was considered essential service, but then
Yeah.
obviously only delivery only.
Yeah.
And now delivery is basically a very loss-making business
Yeah.
while I was working in retail. So how did you guys manage that? I guess that was the only line of business. So
Yeah. You mean the delivery piece? How we
Yeah.
moved into delivery? Yeah, it was one big map of the city and mapping out the city and figuring out who was going to take which routes
Yeah.
and just doing the best that we could to get the cannabis out as fast as we could into the hands of the customers.
Yeah.
I remember setting up Dutchie, which was our online ordering platform. It was the first time, we were one of the first retailers, I believe, in Canada to adopt Dutchie and to use it and effectively. And it was an amazing online retail experience. The interesting thing is that I think during COVID, we all believed that cannabis retail was going to pivot to delivery service. What we did find, this was so amazing, is that before COVID, the education was so important for us to have the education and to educate our customers. But what happened is customers needed to learn for themselves what they wanted. They needed to do their research. They needed to study. So when we opened the doors to the store up again, customers were coming in. They knew what they wanted. So that was a tremendous. It was a very interesting thing to watch take place. But also what became very interesting is that the customer wanted to come into the store. They didn't want to order their cannabis online
Anymore.
Right? They still wanted to have that face-to-face interaction. So I think that kept all of our hearts really warmed. It makes me happy to know that we're not just purchasing cannabis isn't about just knowing what you want. It's also having that human interaction.
Yeah, totally. I mean, in my personal experience, there's so many customers, especially people older, let's say older than 50, who'd come into the store, who doesn't know anything about any products, who's just exploring some products. Some friend told them about this CBD product, or someone told them about this beverage they want to drink. So it's super. The job was super fulfilling in terms of you would give people what they want, but you can also recommend things to them that they would then come in and buy again and again. Like that kind of thing I haven't seen in any other retail jobs. Even if you're a bud tender, it's way more fulfilling than being like a cashier at a grocery store. So I think that's pretty interesting.
Well, look at us. Like when I go into a cannabis store and I feel like I'm very knowledgeable and I know what's out there and I know what I want, I'm still going to walk in, I'm going to look at that bud tender in the eye, and I'm going to ask him, "What's up, bud? I'm looking for a sativa, 7 grams. What do you recommend?" And I'm always going to take the recommendation. So bud tender education is super important because they are the front line and they are selling cannabis. That's what they do. Right.
Just taking a step back, I mean, how did you get into the cannabis in the first place? Like, why did you want to work in the cannabis industry?
Oh, I have a son who's very passionate about cannabis. So I previously lived in Mexico. I lived in Mexico for 27 years. And I came from a place of fear where I was afraid that my child was going to go to jail for a joint. It's one of the reasons that after spending 27 years in Mexico and raising a family there, I had actually decided to come home. I did not want my children to get into trouble, and cannabis was very much part of their life for their mental health. My son, especially my son, actually, Nicholas, shout out to Nicholas. So when I got back to Canada, I was very attracted to the industry and what was happening. And I really wanted to be part of it because as afraid as I was of cannabis in Mexico because of the legal aspect, I'm all about health and wellness, and it was part of my child's mental health journey, and I wanted to be able to support him and to understand more. So I have to say it was probably due to my son.
That's crazy that you had such an open mind.
I'm the coolest mom out there. My son and I, when we talk about it all the time, right? It's created a bond between us.
Yeah. I mean, that's I always say this. I don't think anyone has any stories with alcohol, drugs, which are so close. It takes you closer to the plant itself. The stories that you have with cannabis. And I also have a very personal story where my grandfather used to drink this thing called bhang, which is like Indian medical drink, which is made with cannabis leaves. And I was like 10 years old, and that's when I saw him consume it, and that's like very big part of Indian culture. But we're all just like fear mongered into believing whatever like West said at that time, which was like banning cannabis in the 80s, and that's how India also banned it. They only kept bhang legal, which is like a religious aspect. But then so many people have personal stories with cannabis, which not any other, let's say, drug, quote unquote drug, doesn't have. So that's pretty nice. Just talking about like being a bud tender, and then you moved your way up to maybe managing a store, and then through a rep? Like all of these things take time and experience.
It's so fast in the cannabis industry. I
Yeah.
always say that today's bud tender is tomorrow's store manager. So I ran sales teams for Ready Can and for Hexo. And that was my main message to my reps is don't overlook your bud tenders. Your bud tenders might not be taking the purchasing decisions today, but they
Yeah.
will tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? So connect with your bud tenders. They are the most important piece of this story.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I was a bartender, let's say in September of 2021.
Yeah.
And by January of 2022, it was like 4 months, I was the manager.
Yeah.
So things move pretty fast in the
Yeah.
cannabis industry. There's a huge turnover. Loyal employees get to, get promotions very easily.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what cannabis industry is about. So how do you see bartenders like being trained, or what do you see?
Yeah.
What's the motivation for bartenders to basically stick in the job and make it, maybe not becoming a manager, but maybe going to some other role in the cannabis
Yeah.
industry? How do they do that?
Yeah. How does a bud tender move forward? First and foremost through education. So we've just recently launched a new bud tender training program. It's called Level Up. It was designed and created by Tabitha Fritz, who's a legend in education, not just cannabis education, but especially cannabis education. Tabitha has created this program, and we're talking about not only the science of cannabis and the science of the plant, but about how to be a great salesperson.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a skill that I think previously thought that it was something that you're just born with. Either you're good at sales or you're not. But the sales can actually be taught. And just understanding, asking those open-ended questions when somebody walks in the store. Hey, what are you shopping for today? And then quiet listen, because the customer is going to tell you everything that you need. But in this program, we're able to teach people things that are very simple methods of trying to give the best experience to the customer. Because in the end, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
We want to give that customer an amazing experience, and we want them to come back. Right? So getting the right information and the right product from the bud tender is going to create that loyalty to your store and bring that bud tender or bring that customer back to your store. And then to maintain your employees, your bud tenders, you have to educate them, right? You have to be working with them. Humans crave connection, and they crave education, and they want to feel like they are learning. And I think bud tenders who become stagnant in their jobs are bud tenders that aren't being educated. So I really hope that this program Level Up is going to help the industry with that, and on retaining their employees, because it's about retaining your employee in the end. My customers coming back into my store and they want to talk to the bud tender they talked to yesterday who helped them find the perfect product.
Exactly.
But my bud tenders moved on to the next store.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I've seen this a lot where, including in my store, there wasn't really a lot of focus given to training in the first place.
Right.
I don't know why that's the case in the cannabis industry. There's so many now people have started launching courses, and Spiffy is there where you can learn more about product. So things like that. But I still don't think, I don't know why, but maybe there's the reason why management or ownership doesn't want to invest in training.
Well, that's it, right? Invest.
Yeah.
But what we've found out is that there are government training grants out there. It's actually the Ontario training grant here in Ontario. We have them in BC, Alberta, across the country, that retailers can get up to 83% of their investment back.
Oh.
So this is right now something that I'm very passionate about, because we can train and we can help train your staff, but we can also show you how you can get 83% of your money back. Right? And if you have several stores, the opportunity to, within 2 weeks as well, you can get your money back within 2 weeks. So I mean, if you have several stores, it's about investing in one store and then taking that money and reinvesting in the next store, and keeping your bud tenders engaged and keeping them trained up, because licensed producers do the best they can to come in to teach you about their product. Those product knowledge sessions are very important, but they're not teaching you how to match that product that your store has purchased, how to match that up with the right customer. And that's what we do, is we help teach you, we help you make those decisions about which products go with which customers, depending on the language and what they're asking.
Yeah, totally makes sense. I didn't know about this grant program. I think this is super useful with all the cash crunch going on in Ontario, especially.
So from what I understand, it's up to $10,000 per employee. So if you do have employees, you have up to $10,000 that you can actually spend to educate them, and get your money back for it. So yeah, kudos
Yeah.
to the government for organizing those incentives.
Yeah, I think it again comes down to like less education on even the government's part, where
Yeah.
like the store owners or retailers, let's say, they don't know that all of these programs exist and
Yes.
they can take advantage of this. uh just talking about like bud tenders and the big turnover in the industry, and I know you must have seen it
Yeah.
through your job currently at
Yeah.
Canmar. Yeah, what's the solution to that? I mean, is it
Yeah.
still like a low level job where people will keep turning over? There's no way, there's no loyalty there, or
Yeah. So that this is occurring not only in cannabis, it's retail in general,
mm-hmm.
right? So again, to try to create that loyalty to your store, what do you need to do,
Yeah.
right? How do you prevent people from leaving? Uh, you know, you have to figure out how your employee is motivated, how that person's motivated. Everybody's motivated by something different.
Yeah.
I might be motivated by money. You might be motivated by title, right? Other people are motivated by culture. So it's finding out what motivates your employees and then giving that to them.
Yeah.
Because as a store owner, which I don't, but it's been knowing store owners and managing stores, I know that everybody's distinct, everyone's different, and we have to recognize what it is that motivates these people and then work on that. So not only do bud tenders need to be trained up, so do store managers and people who are in charge of managing teams.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that's where the answer is, and I guess it's retail, so the turnover
Yeah.
will still happen, but it's on the owners and managers to
Yeah.
create a good culture there and
Yeah.
make sure that people are paid fairly, because I think that's also another
Yeah.
bigger problem.
Yeah.
The pay parity is so different.
And to know
depending-
that I'm working at a store where my manager or my owner is actually investing in my education.
Yeah.
Because I think so many people are afraid to invest in education because I think that their employee is going to take that education and move on to the next store. It's
Yeah.
not like that. We're going to stay where we believe that our bosses and the people who manage us care about us and
Yeah.
care about our education and are willing to invest in us.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I think that's something that I guess people here at Elevate must have talked
Yeah.
about to the store managers and retailers,
Yeah.
how to keep employees and maybe train them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just talking about this industry in general, I know you must have seen some people come in from other industries who have never worked in cannabis. How does that work? Are there people
Yeah.
really afraid, or there's still stigma associated with cannabis, or?
Well, it's funny you asked that question because I think about it quite frequently. We feel so comfortable talking about cannabis.
Yeah.
It's part of our life, right? But I've actually heard here at Elevate people speaking about the stigma of cannabis. And it makes me think, I'm sure you think as well, it's like, is this still stigmatized? Like, is this still happening? But it is still happening. Absolutely. Right. And how do we get through this stigmatization and bring talent into the cannabis industry? There's so many transferable skills that people possess that we need over here in this industry. What do we need to do? We need to continue to talk about it and have open conversations about it and engage what people are feeling. And I think when people see myself or you in this industry, and we're professionals and we've come from other industries and other places in life and we're succeeding in this industry, I think it encourages others to join us.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to keep talking. We need to keep doing these interviews and posting and banging our drums about cannabis to try to overcome that stigma.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, that's, I think, one of the things is where if I tell people now that I work in cannabis, it's a pretty shocker, especially for people back home in India, where nobody expects you to actually have a job, right?
Yeah.
You can do, maybe you're growing, but
Yeah.
not having a desk job in cannabis is kind of unheard of
Yeah.
in parts where it's illegal still.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right.
Or how about talking about our consumption and how we consume cannabis, right? Because I mean, to talk about that conversation and people look at me, for example, as a professional businesswoman, wouldn't imagine that I consume cannabis because of that whole crunchy stoner stigma.
Yeah.
I use cannabis for my mental health. I think that a very large percentage of people who are purchasing on the recreational market are actually self-prescribing. We're self-medicating at this point.
Yeah.
And we're using it for our anxiety. We're using cannabis to sleep. We're using cannabis to aid appetite. We're using cannabis as a pre-workout for stress. There's so many reasons that we use cannabis. And I think that to be able to talk about that and then to move into the methods of consumption, because not everybody smokes. I don't smoke anymore. I like to vape dry flower. I like to take edibles. This is my preferred choices and methods of consumption. I think that we need to be talking about that as well. And once we start to talk about that, people start to approach us, and now they're like, "Hey, I'm having a hard time sleeping," or my husband, and then that conversation begins, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden the stigma's gone, and all of a sudden we've converted somebody into using cannabis, who would have judged us yesterday.
Yeah, I can't even tell you how many
Yeah.
people I've got who came to the store for the first time, maybe heard from someone. They were
Yeah.
like, I had this one bad experience 20 years ago back in college
Yeah.
where I had like
Yeah.
100 milligram brownie, and I'm like,
Yeah.
now it's legal,
Yeah.
it's all standardized,
Yeah.
you know how much you're taking
Yeah.
in, you can experiment, you can dose.
Yeah.
There's so much new things that's happening, but people won't know unless they listen to someone
Yeah.
outside of the echo chamber, which is for people who don't smoke, is people who don't smoke, right? So they'll
Yeah.
all just talk about like cannabis as it being a stigma, whereas all of us here think that there's nothing wrong with cannabis.
No.
The people outside don't really see eye
Right.
to eye in that. But
That's
I
right.
think events like Kind, which was open
Yeah.
to the public, and there's some 420 events that happen where I got some friends who were not part of the cannabis industry, who obviously consume, but they still came in and they saw what the culture looks like. I think those are the things that would help improve this
Yes.
stigma, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, because sometimes these types of conventions, people are like, "Oh, it's just for them, right? It's their thing." No, come join us. Come see what it's all about, right? We're having a lot of fun here and making friends, and we have a community. And it's crazy because our community it's a big community. It's across the entire country, yet it's small. We know one another.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And that's what I love about this is that you get to show up at events and actually you see your community.
Exactly, yeah. Uh, like I said, it's a very small industry, but it's also a very big industry because Canada is spread across everywhere.
Yeah.
But once you get together in a small room, it's not a lot of people.
Yeah.
And like you also went from one company to another company, but still in the same industry. I think same with me. I was working at a retailer, now working with another company. I think this is how the industry grows
Yeah.
together. And I think a lot of people I've heard saying this is the cannabis community is one of the bigger thing that why are people staying in the
Yeah.
industry?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I don't think the money is there
No.
as much as before. So
Yeah.
I think it's more about the community and
Yeah.
the culture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Cindy, for
Yeah.
coming on. It was great having you on. And
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was great chatting. I always love chatting about cannabis. So anytime, bud.
Thanks.